Okay, I will call the April 11th, 2023 regular meeting of the Mill Creek City Council to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. How about Councilmember Decay leading us tonight?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adrian, roll call, please.
Mayor Holtzclaw.
Sorry, did you call me? I didn't hear.
Yep, Mayor Holtzclaw.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Vignal.
Here.
Councilmember Allison.
Here.
Councilmember Cavallari.
Here.
Councilmember Duque.
Here.
Councilmember Paddock.
Present.
And Councilmember Steckler.
Here.
Okay, audience communication. I'll start in chambers. Anyone like to address the council? Seeing a negative nod of heads. Anyone online like to address the council as we get started? Going once, twice. Okay, we'll have another opportunity at the end of the meeting. Excuse me. Brings us to presentations in honor of Earth Day, which is next week during our off week. I have a proclamation to read on behalf of the City Council. Proclamation of the City of Mill Creek, whereas the global community now faces extraordinary environmental challenge, and whereas all people, regardless of race, gender, income, or geography, have a right to a healthy, sustainable environment, and whereas all of us, as caretakers of our planet, have an obligation to take action to effect positive environmental change to preserve the Earth's beauty and natural resources, as well as to combat environmental degradation. And whereas this obligation extends not only to today's caretakers, but also to the future generations of caretakers who will inherit our planet from us. And whereas Mill Creek has abundant natural resources and awe-inspiring beauty and an obligation to safeguard them for future generations. And whereas Earth Day is an annual reminder of the constant need for environmental activism, stewardship commitments, and sustainability efforts. Now therefore, I, Brian Holtzclaw, the mayor of the city of Mill Creek, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2023 as Earth Day throughout the city of Mill Creek and encourage residents, businesses, and institutions to use Earth Day to celebrate the earth and promote the well-being of the inhabitants of this community and the protection of our environment. Signed this 11th day of April. Okay, a little adjustment to the agenda. As you probably saw in the email, Jennifer Vangerpen from The Vintage is not able to join us, so we're moving item 6B to our agenda on the 25th. So that brings us to talking about events and sponsorship updates. Mr. Harder.
All right. Geez, hot mic. Test. Gosh, that's loud.
Someone has a computer on.
Thought that didn't matter anymore.
Well, some of the people are joining via Zoom.
Oh.
We need to lower all your volumes.
We're not on Zoom.
Test. Yeah. Better. I'll just stand far away. All right, let's try this. Is that okay? What are you looking at? Yeah. Test. That's better. Mike, you were just like IT tonight. You fixed that. Now you're fixing this. Okay. Well, I didn't know I was presenting this quickly, so I'll just get to it. Well, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. I'm just here to give a quick presentation about our sponsorship programs, along with a quick brief on spring and summer events. Just spring and summer. So, but first, just a quick recap on the extravaganza. I know I didn't see any of you guys there. I think everyone was on spring break, so. But can anybody tell me how many we've hosted? What number was this one? Does anybody know? I just found out today, actually.
14.
10.
20. It was the 20th. Interesting, huh? Yeah. So, although it was pretty wet and it was during spring break, we had about 2,000. So we were down about 1,000, I think. So it was okay. I wasn't too upset, but collectively we lost some eggs last year. We had about 15,000, but the good part is the food bank collected 1,150 pounds of food. So that's awesome. And what's new is the Mill Creek Rotary handed out 100 pounds of kettle corn.
Wow.
And they did an incredible job cleaning up afterward. I didn't see any kettle corn. But we did have a total of 17 booths that included local businesses and service organizations that handed out candy, branded swag, games, and activities. We had elevated sports code ninjas and active martial arts all giving away free passes. They had huge lines. They were like 20, 30 long. So that was really great to see. And Stellar Kids Dentistry, who's one of our sponsors, actually said on Facebook, thank you to the city of Mill Creek for executing a flawless and fantastic family event. So that was pretty cool to see. But on to community sponsorships. There we go. Okay, so this has always been an important program in the city, but it hasn't been managed since 2019. So over the last year, Jody and I have been working, trying to put together a program that can help support our community events. So we finally solidified a program and reached out to about 100 different local businesses and organizations. And of course, we were very late to the game. Most people are planning this money in, I don't know, Q4 usually. So we hit Q1 of this year, but we were able to get enough feedback and enough sponsors on board to help support us this year. So we provided the following programs and options. You can see here, kind of similar to what they've done in the past. We had a signature sponsor, gold, silver, and single event sponsors. So trying to give everybody an opportunity, whether they just want to support one event or all of our events or the big kahuna event, anything like that. So we worked with a lot of different businesses to provide what they could afford. So with that, announcing our 2023 community sponsors, our gold sponsor is Stellar Kids Dentistry. Silver sponsors, Community Transit, Nothing But Cakes, State Farm Insurance, Starbucks, Town and Country Markets, and Greet Mill Creek Magazine. And then our single event sponsors are Elevated Sports, Code Ninjas, Xfinity, and Expedia Cruises. Each level of the sponsorship comes with different marketing and advertising opportunities, but we are bringing back our sponsor placards at Freedom Field for all of our silver and gold. So we'll have some nice, we're almost done with those. I'm guessing they're going to be installed in a few weeks. So give some advertising and put some color out there in Freedom Field. So collectively, we secured almost $25,000 in cash and in-kind donations. So the dollars, they're going to help us secure the necessary items, supplies, and services to keep these events fun and exciting for all. And the in-kind donations will help us provide wonderful service at the events and provide recognition items for staff and residents. So that's it with sponsorships. I can answer any questions now if you have any. All right, I'll move on to spring and summer events. So we have another event-filled spring and summer this year. We've been able to focus on our events calendar on the website and Facebook, which is where the majority of our community members look for event information. And this was information we got out of that spring survey last year about where can they find the information. We really want to try and get out this year and not hear on social that they didn't know about it. We want to try and alleviate that. So we're going to do a lot of different ways of doing that. We're even going to go back to some traditional media and advertising and local media. But you can go on the website now and look on the website calendar, and it's going to have everything on there, everything through the end of the year. And Facebook is slowly building out, but we've noticed posting events on Facebook work really well. So people, especially with city council, that comes up. So if you follow the city, the events pop up days, sometimes weeks before the event actually happens. So it brings a lot more awareness to the Facebook users. So on the website, the calendar, you can see there's lots of different colors there. And we're trying to educate our residents. The light blue are our events, the light orange are community events. So as we try and continue to educate folks that we don't run the Mill Creek Festival, we don't run some of those summer concert series. So we still want to get that information out there because we've heard it over and over that they couldn't find anything on our calendar. So we decided just to add everything. And of course, having sponsors at these events, they kind of act as event ambassadors and definitely help out quite a bit. So with that, I'm going to run into our calendar. So April 22nd is Earth Day. We're going to meet here at City Hall North and travel north along the North Creek Trail, picking up trash. The Youth Advisory Board is going to be leading the charge here, and then residents can sign up. We've got quite a few so far actually that are going to help participate and help us pick up some trash. We also plan on starting a program so residents that don't want to come out to North Creek Trail, but they want to support something else in the city, like a park or a section of road, they can do that. And our public works folks will go out there and pick up the trash that's collected in bags so they can impact their part of the community. Dog walker watch training is April 29th, a week later. This is hosted by Barb Heidel and George from the Citizen Patrol, and that's going to be at City Hall North. I think we have 5 dogs and 5 owners registered already. So after that, on Sunday, May 7th, is the Kiwanis e-recycling day. This is going to be at City Hall North from 10 to 2. This is this has been a recurring event. Let's see, I wrote this down since John knows, right? 2017. That's right. Yeah. And then Monday, May 8th, the next day is when the Citizens Academy starts. That's going to be 10 sessions over the course of 5 weeks. The week after that, we're going to have City Chat at Jackson High School Library from 6 to 7 o'clock. Following that is Memorial Day commemorative ceremony at Library Park at 9 a.m. Another annual event. Y'all know this one. And Pianos on Main are going to come back again this year from June 30th to September 29th. We're still securing some spots. We're not quite sure if Goldfish School is going to be under construction or not, as that's one of the locations one of the pianos was at last year. So we're working with the property owners there. Party in the Parks is going to come back again. We're going to be at Pine Meadow Park and Freedom Field, kind of similar to last year, except we're doing Pine Meadow instead and ending with Freedom Field as the big season ender. And in the middle is going to be National Night Out at Highlands Park.
Is it June
Is your mic on?
30th? Is it June 30th? I had written in my calendar June 29th. Is it Thursday or Friday?
They're usually Thursday.
It's always on a Thursday.
Okay, the Thursday is 29th.
And that probably says 30th.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll have to double check that one.
perfect.
Thank you.
I had it in my calendar, so thank you.
Jody's listening. Please mark that. And National Night Out is going to be at Buffalo Park. So make sure to bring your bocce balls. And also, if you'd like to learn some line dancing, Barb will be teaching line dancing as well. Yeah, that's the last one. There's a QR code if you want to look at the calendar. And I can answer any questions. I do want to mention also, don't forget, like the MCCA garage sales on May 6th. Mill Creek Town Center is going to definitely have their wine walk, the art walk, the summer concert series, Kids Fest, and then of course the Mill Creek Festival on July 15th and 16th, I believe.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions? Councilmember Duque?
I didn't see any, I should start. Wonderful. Just you're amazing. Jody's amazing. All of you are amazing with all of the work that you do. Everyone participated. It was the first year I wasn't able to go to the Easter Egg Fest, and I'm just heartbroken because I love that event. I
You'll be
can't.
okay.
Well, I don't know, because then I had to host an Easter egg and that was the whole thing. But all of the things that you do are amazing. I have a couple questions. The first had to do with I really appreciate the sponsorship information. I'm so glad that you guys, I don't know how you found the time to put that together on top of everything else that you do. I'm curious about the other side. When we're a sponsor of a community event, what does that look like? What's that process like? And maybe that's a separate conversation I could have, because sometimes I see, you know, for example, the Mill Creek Festival, our name is on there, but we're not the sponsor. So I would just be curious to understand how that differentiates, or like the parade, the Hispanic Heritage Parade, those kind of community events.
That's where we do our partnerships and where we're a supporting partner, right? So like the parades, you know, the e-recycling day, we're a supporting partner, right? We work with the Kiwanis, they do the hard work, we secure everything else. We did the Mill Creek Town Center Summer Concert Series last year. We were a supporting sponsor of that. Where we can find value and do trades or anything like that, we've paid out in cash as well in the past. It just, it really has to fit one of our strategic goals and fit into something that we can actually measure and strike as a goal.
That's fantastic. I guess I was, because of the work of how we get sponsors for our events, I was curious if there's anything in place about what that process looks like for when someone in the community wants to partner with us or use us as a supporting partner. So that's kind of what that general question was. And then the second question I have now forgotten, so I will wait to see if someone else says anything. I didn't write it down because my question was garage sale, but you already mentioned it, so.
Any other questions? Councilmember Cavallari.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Scott. Hey, just out of curiosity, these sponsorships, gold, silver, and bronze, what are the financial thresholds for that? Just out of.
Yeah, so signature sponsor was $10,000. We did not secure a signature sponsor. Gold is $5,000 and silver is $2,500.
Thanks.
Councilmember Steckler.
Scott, first I want to echo Councilmember Decay. Great job putting this out, getting it out and lined out in advance. So my question is more just in curious. I noticed no parade, no Veterans Memorial Day parade or anything listed. Is that a decision you made going forward?
This is just spring and summer events.
So
yes, absolutely Veterans Day parade.
There will be. Okay, great. Thank you.
Did you remember your other question? Councilmember Duque.
My other questions were actually, and I think that's why I paused on it, but was anniversary things related to the city of Mill Creek.
The 40-year.
Yes. Just
Yeah.
wondering if that was considered, you know, Disneyland likes to start it and then it's a full year of like activities or events whenever they have some type of anniversary. So we haven't heard, I know the last time that you came and present to us, you talked about there would be additional information about what that would look like. And so because
Yeah.
it's a fall event, I would say not this presentation.
I believe the mayor has the actual date, correct? It's like a September date, is it?
September
Yeah.
30th.
There hasn't been much conversation. We have been talking about how to spend some ARPA funds to do some rebranding of celebrating the 40th, right? Some temporary ways to call that out during the probably late summer, early fall and winter kind of stuff. But you're right, there should be an event. Nothing has been planned yet. We've been busy.
Yeah, no. Yes, absolutely. And I
But it
wanted to
sounds like we
acknowledge
should have a
that.
committee.
That was my next thing. Is that something that should be put together? Okay.
I love that you're volunteering for that.
I am, absolutely, 100%. I love events. Yes, so put me down for anything to do with any type of anniversary. And then the other question I had, other than anniversary, was events at other locations. I know that we didn't have a presentation today from Jennifer from the farm, but have there been other conversations of other areas in the city of Mill Creek that want to do anything or conversations that way? I'm just thinking about the farm. There's pianos on Main. I wouldn't want us to have pianos at the farm, for example, but if we do that, what was it, the owl? There were like, certain the things that Arts of Beautification was talking about, or those kind of ones that they were talking about the stage or art aspects. I'm just curious if you've heard of any movement on those items.
Jody and I have talked about that. We'd really like to see things move around in the city a
Mhm.
lot more, right? We're doing that with City Check, kind of getting around, going into all the different corners as much as possible. And we want to do that with some of the other events,
Mhm.
right? Especially with the parks and stuff, but it's been really tough so far just to figure out where that's going to be. But we've been
Yeah.
talking about it, just haven't planned anything yet. Totally agree though.
Thank you very much.
Other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Scott. Good work. Okay, brings us to what is under new business, but I think is really old business, our legislative update. Who wants to kick it off?
I will kick it off real fast. Thank you. I want to start with thanking Director Todd and Mayor Holtzclaw for really, while I was gone on vacation, stepping up and really doing a massive amount of work regarding Senate Bill 5466. We have sent in a letter to weigh in. We have been in discussion with our representatives, really trying to push that we need them to take out this idea that the densities are going to apply to areas along bus rapid transit lines. So there's been a lot of discussion around that. And so I will probably let one of them discuss that a little bit more if they would like to, since they've been going on with that. And also the Senate passed 1110. And I think because the two of them were on top of this, I'm going to let one of them address it as well, because through all those emails that I saw coming through, I thought I saw that they went back to the original 25,000 number and not being adjacent. So I'm going to let Director Todd or Mayor Holtzclaw update you on that, because they really did a lot of work on this last week when I was gone.
Yeah, it was 1110 was passed by the Senate yesterday, and it had the change we talked about last week, so that for cities below 25,000 like ours, we would only be required to plan for 2 units per lot. Whereas I think we started off at 4 and possibly up to 6. So it was the better alternative that we had hoped for. 5466 is, that's the Senate bill. So it's pending in the House. It's waiting to get placed on the floor. My sense is the reason why it hasn't been placed on the floor is there's some last minute haggling going on to remove bus rapid transit lines from the bill. We reached out to Representative Berg on Friday. She told us then that it was imminent vote either on Friday or yesterday. That didn't happen. She told us this morning she anticipated a vote today, and it still hasn't happened. So that tells me that there's a lot of negotiations going on behind the scene for that final change. So as I said last week, the push is with that bill is it kind of treats light rail communities the same as bus communities like ours. And so what seems to be gaining traction is pulling out the BRT communities and figuring out how to deal with them between sessions and coming back with a change in the bill. But as of 2 minutes ago, when I last checked, it still hasn't been placed on the floor calendar for a vote. So that could change in the next 24 hours or 48 hours. The other thing on the land use side that our planners are well aware of is 1181, the climate change and resiliency bill passed. I'm still not clear the timing of that. I'm not sure it affects us with our next comp plan update. I think we have a grace period of up to a couple years to implement that, but that will be more planning work for our planning team and consultants to help us through that process. So I think those are the major land use related bills that affect us.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. And also I know there were a few things that there's a little bit of movement with the police bills. I think Connie has an update for those.
Yeah, so let's see. Senate Bill 5352, which is to rectify the pursuit laws in the state. It cleared both House and Senate, and it's now in the hands of the leadership of those two bodies. They may tweak a few more words before they hand it to the governor, so it still hasn't gone to the governor's desk yet. And then Senate Bill 5536, which is the controlled substance solution. It's in the House Rules Committee right now, so maybe we'll see movement in the next 24 hours. And that's all I have.
I'll ask the chief to clarify, but with the pursuit bill, my recollection is they changed the law so that you have to have probable cause for a pursuit, and this change would move it back to reasonable suspicion.
Yes.
That is correct. And then it also adds a few more crimes to the possibility of pursuits from law enforcement.
Okay, other updates?
Perfect is, okay, perfect. We're good. Thank you.
And I think on the finance side, I think we mentioned last week that our budget requests were in the House budget, and they're in the process of reconciling the House and the Senate capital budget. So hopefully we'll know more in the next week or so that our requests for City Hall North and the DRCC property remain in the hopper for funding this session. Okay, anything else? Yep, Councilmember Steckler.
Quick question, legislative, I know it's not in the developmental, but the recent law that passed outlined the sale of assault rifles in Washington State. I know it was revised by the Senate, sent back to the House. Is there any update on that? Did we know as it passed the House, the revised bill?
I don't
We
know, does
haven't been
anyone know?
tracking that.
I was just curious if there's any update on that. Okay, I just curious.
Councilmember Paddock.
On 1110, does that still have the language that would eliminate HOAs from the 2 houses per lot?
It never had language that eliminated them. The prime sponsor of the bill has testified that it's not intended to be retroactive, and the only language in the bill is that prospective only.
Okay,
So it's for new communities that would be created after the effective date of the ordinance. So from everything I've seen, it would not apply to existing homeowners associations that have covenants that would be inconsistent with what the act requires.
thank you.
And then one thing for a study session, I think we're going to do after the session ends is, since this was our first foray into the legislature in a while, is kind of do a download of what went well, what went wrong, where we can improve, so that we're ready to hit the ground running that next session. So it's been a little frenzied this time around, but we're learning as we go. So. Okay, let's talk more comp plan. Is Director Todd going to introduce this one?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. So we'll get a little introduction here, and then we'll turn it over to our guests. Let me see if I can find the right, there we go. So a little bit of contract, a little bit of background. Actually, Clay White was an interim director when he got us started on this, but we got the RFQ put together and sent it out on the 23rd, and then we revised a little bit, sent it again on the 28th or the 26th. And OTAK came back and gave us a really nice presentation, a nice proposal. So they were selected as the city's preferred consultant based on the fact they'd already done some work with us for this Mill Creek Boulevard sub-area plan. And one of the strong components of their proposal is LDC. So Clay's gonna be back with us again. Again, the advantage of Clay and Mandi Roberts, who's with us tonight, are both on the team, and they know quite a bit about Mill Creek already. Real briefly, at a very high level, and Mandy's gonna cover this some more, but the whole thing, what we're doing in the comp plan process is a lot of times you hear us talking about the land use aspects of it. It also has the critical areas ordinance pieces of it. But really what we're talking about is accommodating growth. But there's also about 8 other areas that you're talking about, other elements that go along with it. So the comprehensive plan process is not just the housing growth targets, but a bunch of other elements. The way it starts off, the first phase is basically they're going to work with us to say, where are we? What do we need to change? Kind of a situation analysis. A big part of the entire process is required by the state, and it's important for us too to have a lot of community engagement. So that's again one of the things we'll do in the first phase is kind of figure out how we engage with our community throughout this whole project. Doesn't say it up here, but the project has got to be done by the end of 2024. So this is like an 18-month kind of project that we're dealing with. One of the things we will do is look at the options for accommodating growth. Remember, we talked about the Mill Creek Boulevard sub-area plan as one of our options. We've also got the middle housing study going on right now. That's one of our options. But there'll be some more work to be done, but how do we accommodate the growth? And so that's a big part of what's encompassed in these phases. And it really just sets us up for eventually, after the comp plan is adopted, we'll be changing our development code. You see there the big prices that adds up to $381,000, which is within our budget. Mandi, I'm going to turn over to Mandi Roberts now, who's a principal at OTAK, to kind of walk through what they do and how they do it. So Mandi, take it away. Yep, yes, you do. Yeah, and you get to look right in the lights. We're up to stand on the side. You want to stand on the side?
I see how that works. Yeah, okay, and then advancing. Okay. Great. Okay, all right, well, thank you so much, Mayor, council members. It's very nice to be here with you again. And just a reminder, I'm a principal with OTAK, an interdisciplinary firm. We're based in Redmond, close by. We also have an Everett office nearby. So we're very pleased to be working with the city again on the comprehensive plan update. Tonight, I want to just tell you a little bit more about our team and our experience on the comprehensive planning side. Some information about our approach. And as Mike mentioned, community engagement is an important part of this process. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the tools and techniques we use for engaging communities in long-range planning. Quick summary, and then we'll have time for questions, answers, and further discussion. So this is our organizational chart for our team, and you see lots of categories and names here. One of the reasons for that is comprehensive planning is very diverse and broad, and it encompasses everything from land use and housing to economic development and transportation and natural environment considerations. And so we have a team that's built around providing that diversity of expertise. And OTAK as an interdisciplinary firm, we have not only planners and urban design experts in the firm, but we have civil engineers and people who work on stormwater master planning and utilities. And so we have sub-consultants as well who will support the team. And LDC is one of those. So we're really glad to have Clay and his team with us working side by side. In particular, the middle housing elements that will be integrated into the plan will continue by LDC and be completed within those grant requirements as part of this project. We also have a couple of other sub-consultants. So Leland Consulting Group, who you might recall worked with us on the Mill Creek Boulevard sub-area plan. They work in market assessment, economic development, understanding transit-oriented development. They are going to help us really in looking at the growth allocations of your growth targets and where it makes most sense to do that. And, you know, including encompassing, you know, some of the work that we had previously completed in the Mill Creek Boulevard area. Our other sub-consultant is Transpo Group, local transportation firm. They do a lot of transportation master plans, comprehensive plans. And so they'll be working with us on the transportation element of the comprehensive plan. So we, as a firm and with our partners, have worked on comprehensive and sub-area planning throughout Washington and throughout the West. And as you all spoke about earlier, Washington has a lot of unique, not only legislation that's happening now and has happened recently that affects our comprehensive planning, but of course the Growth Management Act requirements, State Environmental Policy Act, shorelines, things like that are all things that we understand because of our long history of working in Washington. And one of the things that we really pride ourselves on in our planning is we like to create plans that are realistic and practical, not pie in the sky, overly reaching, but things that really can be implemented and are, you know, within the resources of communities to make happen. So I think one of the reasons why an interdisciplinary approach supports that is we're not just the planners, we're also thinking about the capital improvement side, what the costs are associated with constructing projects and things like that. So that's an important part of what we do. And we sometimes just call that vision that works. So it's a great little motto that we have. Snohomish County Comprehensive Planning, we're all planning kind of in alignment with the Snohomish County countywide planning policies, the CPPs. You hear a lot of acronyms in this business, right, Clay? And those tell us the allocations for the cities around Snohomish County. And we are working on a couple of other city plans in Snohomish County. So work for Linwood as well as for Arlington, two very different places, and Mill Creek as well as a very different community. So we like to really tailor our approach to fit each community and the characteristics in each community. So, you know, Linwood, for example, they have 2 light rail stations being built, one that will eventually happen at Alderwood. That's a big focus of our planning work there, and especially thinking about what they call their regional growth center, which is really their city center and Alderwood, and how that area is going to transform in the next 20 years. So much more of an urban type of look at that. Whereas Arlington, on the other side of the paradigm, is really, you know, more of an foothills of the Cascades type community, gateway to recreation. But there's a lot of interesting things happening there related to manufacturing and warehousing and the airport. And so, you know, it's just great to kind of work in these diverse communities with different interests and to understand Snohomish County as part of that work as well. With regard to housing, jobs, and economic development, of course, the middle housing work that LDC is working on will be complete. Housing is really important, and we have a lot of considerations related to that with not only 1220 that relates to middle housing, but also 1110, as you were speaking about earlier, and what aspects of that we need to consider as part of the next 20 years in Mill Creek. We do a lot of work thinking about neighborhoods and town centers. That's one of the reasons why we worked on the Mill Creek Boulevard plan. It was thinking about bringing more energy into the heart of Mill Creek. And so that'll be part of our continued work here in Mill Creek as well. Some interesting changes that are happening in our world. Working from home. Working from home is an interesting dynamic that there's a lot of data available showing, you know, how that's changing after the pandemic, but that it's kind of reaching a point of stability that, you know, depending on different statistics that we look at, there could be 20 to 30% of people at any time working from home. So this is a really different change in how we plan in our region, because we've always planned for jobs and we've thought about commutes and trips related to jobs. Now we have the ability to think about working from home and how those might be jobs in the community as well. So that's interesting. We also, of course, have the changes in commerce and retail that are happening with the working from home, the changes in office and workplace dynamics. So we have a lot of research that we've done, a lot of data that we'll bring to the table related to those changing dynamics. Our approach, we have this really hairy schedule. It's got it all mapped out for the next year and a half or 18 months, as Mike said. So I'm going to skip over that because it's a little hard to read and just go to this diagram. Mike already presented this really well. We have kind of 4 main phases of work that we'll be accomplishing. Down at the bottom, these are the opportunities for engagement with each of those phases. So again, the first phase is really about launching the process, letting everybody know we're doing this plan and confirming the vision for Mill Creek for the next 20 years. Then we'll move on to step 2, which is gathering input on community needs, planning policies, and potential scenarios of the way things might occur in Mill Creek over the next 20 years. Then we'll compile the full draft plan and gather input on that. And then the last step will be the final adoption process, which also is a public process. So we'll be gathering public comments during that phase. So just a few slides about community engagement. You know, we really like planning to be intertwined with community engagement. some of the most important things that are part of that process is really listening to the community, documenting what we hear and repeating back. We heard you. This is how your input's being incorporated into the plan. And then using the process as a tool to really build trust and also to work with the community to help us get the word out and gather input and bring that back to our process. We really strive to reach everyone and involve everyone in the community. Some of you might remember when we had the public meetings for the Mill Creek sub-area plan, we met with the youth groups, we met with businesses, we met with service club representatives. So we'll really work with the city to develop the right type of approach. Clay and I were just talking about the party and the park events, that those could be places where we might set up a tabling event, gather input from folks. So there's a lot of things like that in Mill Creek that we can gather input on. And that's one of the things that we've learned based on this slide here is, you know, we just can't advertise that we're having a public meeting and expect people to come, right? Sometimes you don't get very many people because of that. So we really need to go to where the people are. And that includes community events, walking tours, as some of these examples show you. And we have a pretty large toolbox of types of engagement activities that we've honed over the years. So of course, the traditional open houses and meetings, but there are a lot of other different tools and techniques that we can bring to the table for Mill Creek. So we'll be developing a specific plan for engagement with staff and tailoring that to really fit what works best here in the community. We also frequently work with advisory committees, and we did work with one for the Mill Creek sub-area plan, and that was very effective. So we might suggest pulling together an advisory committee for the comprehensive plan as well, and having it be community-based. It can include members of different boards and commissions, as long as we're following the public meeting rules. Optimal size, 15 to 20 people. One of the things that we really like to do if we're going to have a committee is plan out their agendas and the schedules for the meetings way ahead of time. So everybody gets them in their calendar, they know when they need to show up, and you don't have to, you know, be constantly scheduling and things like that. So that's what we would suggest if we move forward with that. And during the pandemic, we had an opportunity to really hone some of our online tools. Sometimes when we're working with advisory committees or working with different groups, we'll use an online process or program to gather input. This one's called Mentimeter. And you can see these are some of the slides that we used for a advisory group meeting for our Linwood project, where we were gathering input online. People can see it immediately. They can see what other meeting participants are saying. It's very enlightening. We also have the ability to gather input through ArcGIS, online portals. Doing story maps for projects can be really helpful too. It can be interactive to zoom in to the maps in different areas and see changes or ideas being proposed. Branding is something that you guys might recognize, Mill Creek Boulevard project brand. Something that we like to do. It helps people recognize a planning process or a project over a long duration. And if they see a poster, or they see a postcard, or they see information on the website, they'll realize, oh, that's about the comprehensive plan. I really want to tune in, be involved in that. So, and then, you know, another thing that we really like to do as part of our plans is show people what change is going to look like. And people have a hard time grasping that when you're just showing plan view, you know, plan view changes for land use. So really illustrating things at human scale. And we did that on the Mill Creek Boulevard plan. I think it was very effective in helping people understand what that change might look like. And we're really proud of this work. We've shown it all around the region to people as what we did here in Mill Creek. So we bring that to the process, and we can look at, you know, some of these ideas in other places if we need to. So just a quick summary. Our team has a lot of interdisciplinary capabilities. At the same time, we work really efficiently together, and we know Mill Creek really well. We've worked here before, LDC. Clay's been helping the city, and our sub-consultants also have experience here. And we're just really excited to work in this community. It is a special place. I don't live here now, but I did live here for a while. And as you were talking about some of the events tonight, it just made me a little bit nostalgic because it's such a strong community, and a strong community deserves a really well thought out and effective plan for their future. So we're excited about that. So with that, I'm going to get out of the spotlight slightly, but I'm happy to answer any, or do you want to do that now, Mike? Or yeah, any questions that you all might have?
Thank you, Mandy. Any questions? Mayor Pro Tem?
Hit the wrong button again. Thank you for the presentation. I actually have probably more comment than question, because I really like the idea that you brought up about going to, for instance, the party in the parks for some engagement, because I think with the sub area plan, some of the engagement was really excellent, like going to the senior center, getting the youth advisory board. But I feel like like everything else that we do, it seems that when we're doing some of it, we keep getting the same people. And I would like to expand and get out to where the people are and get their input, because they're living here and we need a broad range of opinions and input, and to be able to actually maybe put our heads together and think out of the box a little bit on some ways to get into some areas in our community that don't usually participate in and speak up and hear what they have to say and what they would like the city to look like in the future as well. So I think it's important that we're getting diverse opinions and not as valuable. I don't want to sound like they're not valuable. The people that come all the time, their opinions are extremely valuable, but we need to pull in more people so that we're hearing from everyone. And so that the final product is representative of the whole city. So thank you.
Councilmember Cavallari?
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation as well. Nice to have you back here. You guys do great work. I have kind of a question and a comment too. It's more from the philosophical standpoint here of the push to try to move growth to certain areas. And the reason I say that is I read something recently in the Wall Street Journal that showed, for the most part, the workforce that has not come back. And they used examples of cities like Chicago, St. Louis, Minneapolis, and even Seattle for that matter, and down 23%. So it's a substantial number. And are we trying to force something that is moving away? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of factors, crime, permissiveness, all the above, besides post-COVID. I'm sure there's a lot of factors, but I just want to make sure that we're not trying to force growth to an area just because that is the hot topic, when clearly the people are trending to get away from those metropolitan areas.
Yeah. Well, that's a very big question that you're asking there. And as you all know, the regional planning process directs planning for our region. And the growth targets are established for each county through that process. And so I know we are planning to do a workshop with council in the early stages of the plan. And I think that could be a really good thing to look at, is how is that growth allocated and why? And is it considering, some of the more recent trends that we're seeing? I think, that a lot of that's left to the local level to really analyze what's best for each city in terms of where they want to allocate their growth targets and what makes sense. Luckily, you guys have done some work already in that area, thinking about the town, the town center and Mill Creek Boulevard areas south of town center as, an area that has infrastructure, it has services. So it's an area that could, support some of the growth that you need. So that's why when I mentioned the work from home trend, that is a newer thing. And we talked to Puget Sound Regional Council about that recently. For example, jobs, the jobs allocations are quite high throughout Snohomish County. they're quite high in many of the jurisdictions that we're working in. And so we asked if we would be able to count work from home jobs as part of the mix. And they said, as long as we had data to support that, seemed like a reasonable request. So a lot of this we kind of need to, and thank goodness Clay, he's very knowledgeable about these things too, but we kind of need to find the right path for your community and make the right decisions as we go along for your community. Well, also, and probably the mayor might have some things to weigh in on this as well, but while also following those regional and county policy directives that we need to follow. Yeah.
And if I may just quickly follow up on that. And one of the glaring aspects of this that people are not talking about is the commercial real estate business and how these cities are essentially empty shells of what they were. And a great study of Chicago's Miracle Mile, I think is what they call it. And the loss of tax revenue and the loss of residents in that area is just a shocking number. So how often, I think we'll have to parallel this with, I know the GMA is telling us that we have to do X. How often is that updated, and what benchmarks are we using to kind of run parallel with that, just to make sure we're not trying to build something that no one's going to go to, kind of.
Right. Well, lots of people love your community, that's for sure.
Before I get to everyone else, just remember the agenda item tonight is a contract. We're going to have plenty of study sessions and further hearings to talk about the substance of the GMA and what we have to plan for. So just keep that in mind as you go to make your comments. I saw one light go off. Councilmember Duque.
You said it right before I was going to speak, right?
I said right before everyone. There's another light. There's four lights.
Yeah. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. The slide that you passed through quickly, the one with the full schedule, because I'm a project manager, that was my favorite one. I started looking at it and I was like, oh, I was just working on one like that today. So anyways, I'm very excited to have you guys working on this, and thanks for everyone who worked on putting together this contract and as we move forward. I just had two just brief things when we were Mayor Pro Tem's comment about our audiences, or how do we, communicate, things that just popped in my head, and just saying PTAs, and then thinking about and not just ones that are physically schools that are within our boundaries, because there's so many students who go right outside. So just thinking about that Mill Creek's boundaries aren't as firm, because there's a lot of, busing that happens into our school. So, but that's an opportunity there. I know connecting with HOAs is sometimes hit or miss. So maybe it's not individual HOAs. I mean, we do have a large one, obviously, MCCA, but there are other ones. Maybe there's getting together with like 3 or 4 in a area to see that kind of communication, I think would be helpful. Those are just the two that popped in my head when we were talking about what does it look like for tabling, and I mentioned it because of Mayor Pro Tem. The other thing is, I want to tie back to our anniversary, because I think when it's nice when you think about our anniversary, we think about where we are, and we get really into the nostalgia about what the city was. And there's absolutely an element of that should happen for the anniversary. It's a big one, whether it's a year-long celebration, again, the Disney background in me, or whatever it looks like. But I think there's something really beautiful about tying this comp plan into what does our city then look like for 20 years, because then it feels actionable. And I think there's an opportunity that it's not just about, oh, look at us, talking about the glory days, but really thinking through, these are our core values, and this is what we vision, see for our city for the 20 years. So incorporating that, since it looks like the timeline will overlap with our anniversary and with this comp plan. So I just really would like to think through how does, in the messaging and in the conversations and even in the look visually, how do we do that? Because I feel like this kind of stuff sometimes seems boring. And for people who just are not into it, not for everyone, not for the people in this room. We all love it. No disrespect here. But for others, they might not think about it. And so if you're asking them to take ownership of what it looks like, and there's that tie-in, I think there's like a sweet spot there that I would love for us as a city to move forward with. And thank you for your time.
Councilmember Paddock.
Hi there. Great presentation. Thank you for that. It looked like there was about, if I read it right in the prep materials, 16 months or so of pre-work, let's say, and then 4 months or so of finalizing the plan itself, roughly. But I couldn't see how many touch points will there be in that 16 months with both the planning commission and the council? Has that been mapped out in the?
I don't think we've specifically mapped out the number of points yet, but we will be having those. I
Sure.
do know that for
Yeah.
sure. And so that is one of the things as part of our engagement plan and starting the work that we'll do very soon with
Mhm.
Mike and staff and Al will be talking about what's, what the appropriate number of times are to come and brief. Of course, staff has the opportunity to brief you as part of staff reports, at your meetings on a regular basis, but having our team come in at key points and share information with you about what we're hearing and how the plan is evolving, it will also be important. So we'll definitely map that out.
Okay, I think that'd be, I'd like to know that there wouldn't be some sort of maximum of, well, hey, you've had your 4 touch points.
Oh, yeah.
You'll need to talk to staff after that. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, please.
Oh, go ahead. I didn't lose you.
And then, at that July mark for next year, once we get down to the next 4 months or so of being the comp plan, you brought up the Mill Creek sub area proposal a number of times, right? And that came to this body and it was 0 to 7, right? Voted down. It was definitely voted not to go forward, correct?
It was
Whatever
not,
the number was.
it was not. We took a vote to advance the recommendations for staff to incorporate them into the comp plan update for us to consider.
Okay. So I guess what I'm asking is, based on that really there wasn't a lot done after that, right? Kind of
Right.
sat.
Yep.
So if at 4 months prior, it comes to the council and the council makes that same kind of no decision, what happens in those 4 months? How do we rectify that? Or are we kind of like, nope, you got 4 months, you're going to need to take this plan?
Well, let me ask that question a different way, because that's where I was going to go. What is is there going to be a touch point with the this goes through the planning commission and comes back to us, but I assume there's going to be some process with us to give some sense of direction before it gets to the planning commission.
Yes, absolutely. So the one thing I know we've talked about is an early workshop, just to talk a little bit about the growth allocations and GMA and compliance with that. So I'm anticipating we would want to have at least a couple more workshops during the planning process in whatever meeting structure makes sense to council to get your input on, okay, now we're looking at where these growth for population, housing units and jobs might go in the community. We'd like to get your input, what makes sense. Of course, we'll also be getting public input as well. So we would have those touch points as workshop sessions or in whatever format makes sense for council to get your input and guidance. So we do not want to get at the end of the process, the planning process, and be, on a track that's not going to be, adoptable for council. We need to make sure that we're moving ahead in alignment. So.
Great, thank you. One last question then, unrelated. Those are two. The community engagement that you mentioned, it seems like, and I think I read this in the proposal, it's both an opportunity to solicit information and input from the community, but also an opportunity to educate
Sure.
the community
Yeah.
in requirements. I mean, there's a lot of, we don't want anything. And, that's obviously not an option. And it seems like there's an opportunity to do some education in those sessions as well. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Steckler.
Just to follow up to Councilmember Paddock's comments, I think he brings up a really good point that we learned from the last one. The council, whether we agreed or disagreed, we were surprised, extremely surprised at the outcome and the recommendations. And so that's what caused a lot of that outcome, let's just say, or lack of outcome. So I think he brings up a really good point. One of your objectives would be to make sure that the council is not going to be extremely surprised by your recommendations and whatever number of touch points are necessary to achieve that. I think that's a great recommendation. That way we avoid that. Here's what we recommend. What? No. Oh gosh, where'd that come from? That would be a shame considering the amount of money we're spending and everything. So I think that's a good recommendation. Let's do everything possible to make sure the council is not caught by surprise.
Any other questions? Director Todd, do we have a cheat sheet?
Yes, indeed. We can pull the presentation back up again. Let me see. There it is.
I can take care of that. One moment.
We're gonna go down to the bottom. So what our action is tonight is a resolution to execute a contract with OTAK.
Uh-oh. There we go.
Thought I had it there, but weird things are happening. I'm not touching anything. Somebody's doing this.
Look, no hands.
I'd be happy to take over.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you hear me? I mentioned that I was you have to share the screen so the audience can see it. So I'm taking care of that. One
There we
moment.
go. I had it right there. So anyway, OTAK, as
It's
Mandy
one-
pointed out,
one
this
slide
is, we're gonna get started with. We're gonna get started with work with city staff. Al would have loved to be here. He's on vacation in Hawaii, so I got the short stick and got to do that tonight. But Al and his entire staff and Frank and me and some others and all, of course, all of you in the planning commission will be involved in this. Our goal overall is to create a very usable document. Sometimes these things just get done, they put on a shelf, and it's really a focus for me, focus I believe for you, and a focus for Mandi and her team to make sure when we get done, it's something that we won't just put on the shelf, we'll keep pulling it off and looking at it. Because this is part of our 20-year plan. You guys talked earlier, a couple of months ago, about a strategic plan for the city. There's a strategic plan that involves a lot of operational things, but this has a lot to do with land use. So those two long-term plans, 20-year plans, need to play together, and we need to have very usable. And Mandi mentioned it there. We're thinking it's probably in late May when we're ready. We'll work with Mandi and putting the schedule together. We're thinking about a joint session. The Planning Commission would love to do that, sit down at this table and do the workshop kind of thing, a chance for educating on some of the elements behind this, what you have to do. One of the questions earlier was, well, what happens if we don't like this? Well, in this case, you can't say no to everything. You have to pick some options. So Mill Creek Boulevard Sudbury plan, we kind of parked that and said, here's one option, but there's other options we need to explore. So that's partly where the middle housing study came in as a way to look at other options. But you will have to come up with something that is compliant. Otherwise you lose the opportunity to get funding at PSRC, you lose the gas tax, you lose all kinds of things. The governor can come and sit here and cross dribble for us. So it is important that when we get done, we've got something that complies with the mandates in terms of growth. Councilmember Cavalieri brings up some really interesting topics. All that Vision 2050 was all based on history. Planning is always based on history. You look backwards and see if you can turn around and look forwards. A lot has changed since Vision 2050 was put together, called a pandemic. And so this is going to be an interesting planning period. So when there may be things we have to put in there in terms of alternatives, the bottom line is you have to have this number, X people have to be housed. But I can see maybe there's some things in there, there's some asterisks that says we may want to revisit our plans sooner than the 10-year mandated. We may have to just plan that 5 years from now, we'll be 5 years smarter. Maybe we'll come back and do that earlier. State doesn't prevent you from doing it earlier. And that may be something we have to look at as not just Mill Creek, but the whole area, because I can see quite a bit of difference. If my kids aren't driving to work 5 days a week, there's going 2 days a week, that does make a difference. Those people are employed here and they might come to lunch here, whereas before they're going to Seattle or Bellevue. So there will be lots of changes. Enough opinions. We're down to.
We need the next slide. Looks like,
There it
there
is.
we go.
There is the proposed motion. So this would be adopt a resolution, authorize the city manager to execute this. So there are questions.
Mayor, I'd like to propose a motion. Adopt a resolution approving a contract with OTAK to assist the city in preparing the 2024 comprehensive plan update in the amount of $381,200 and authorizing the city manager to execute the contract. Second.
Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mandi. Thank you, Clay. Good to see you. Okay, it brings us to the consent agenda. Before I get started, are we good on the minutes that are on the consent agenda? Okay. So our consent agenda this evening, item A, approval of checks number 65907 through 65949, ACH wire transfers in the amount of $202,390.54. Audit committee were council members Allison and Paddock. Were there any exceptions?
No exceptions.
No exceptions.
And item B, payroll and benefit ACH payments in the amount of $295,785. Any exceptions?
No exceptions.
No exceptions.
And item C, council meeting minutes of March 28th and April 4th, 2023. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Consent agenda is approved unanimously. City manager reports.
Thank you, Mayor. A few weeks back, I had an opportunity to meet with CEO of the North Shore Senior Center, Nathan Phillips, and in that discussion, I just mentioned to him, he mentioned to me that they're actually looking for a board member for the organization. So I thought I'd just mention that I would reach out to in council and just communicate to all of you and the city as well, leadership team, that if you know anybody that would be interested and somebody that would want to sit on the board. A little bit about the North Shore Senior Center. They just don't work with seniors. They also have 2 food banks, adult day health program. They have an inclusion program for younger adults too, 25 plus. And they work with disabled individuals, and they have a number of social services that they deliver to customers. They're looking for somebody who has nonprofit accounting, finance experience to sit on the board. It can't be someone who lives within the city. I'm sorry, it can be somebody who lives within or outside the city, but it cannot be someone who is associated with the city of Mill Creek. There's no other questions. The next one is in front of you. You probably see the little placards, the new mission, vision, and core values. So we're starting to push those out across the city. You'll see more of those. They're, I think Scott calls them, what are those things you see in the rest? What? Happy hour. Happy hour. But anyway, so we're starting to get those printed, and we'll have those distributed across the city soon. The last report is we opened a 3rd passport window on the police side. The service is on Friday and Saturday. It takes, I think that window is only for scheduled appointments, and it's been going well so far. We've done over 2 weekends, and that's all I have. No other reports. Thank you.
No other staff reports?
No other staff reports.
Director Todd, I think.
City manager, I do have a report.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks. So I
Apologize. Yeah, Director Todd has one report.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to let you know, so in our normal fashion, we are working on another C category pipe failure project for this summer, and that's in design right now. But I want to let you know that we have an emergent stormwater pipe repair project that's coming up. It's one that we had not anticipated, and so we're going to be adding that to the CIP. We're not going to use our existing design contractor because they're busy. And so we're going to be going out to RFP or RFQ to get somebody to qualify to work on this next project. So I want to give you a heads up that probably a month from now, we'll be coming back and asking for a contract authorization for this project. We'll make a budget amendment, all those kinds of things at that time. But I just didn't want you to be surprised when if you happen to see, looking through the back pages of the Everett Herald, and you see an advertisement for a stormwater repair project, you don't recognize that's why. It's out of sequence and something we're going to add to the CIP. And there'll be more to come. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, a couple items for me. Could everyone, in July, we're looking farther down the road trying to set agendas. Our first regular meeting falls on July 4th, which I'm advised would roll over to July 5th. The Mayor Pro Tem will be out for a couple weeks, the beginning of July. I'll be out the week of the 10th. So could everyone let Adrian know in the next week or so your availability on the 5th, the 11th, the 18th, which is our off week in the event we need to use that for a special meeting. And then our last regular meeting would be the 25th. So if you could just let Adrian know your availability, that would be great. So we can plan our agendas accordingly. Second item, the SEC dinner is next Thursday, the 20th. I believe the Mayor Pro Tem and I are signed up. I'm not sure if anyone else is. So if you have an interest, let Adrian know so we can get you registered. It's at Terracotta Red in Everett. Great food, good venue. It's been a very good event the last number of months. One of the mayor's meetings I attend is more of an informal meeting of South County mayors. It's organized by Brazil from Linwood, and sometimes this is more of an ad hoc discussion about what's going on. For instance, right now, Briar and Montlake Terrace are following in our footsteps, and I believe both of them are on the April 25th special election ballot to be annexed to South County Fire. So we've had many discussions about our experiences with that. But the other thing that came up at the last meeting that was just interesting, I'll throw it out there, not for discussion tonight, but for another night. Mayor Marine from Mukilteo was talking about how they had organized 2 summits in their city recently. One was a business summit and one was a nonprofit summit. Just convening the business leaders in one group and the nonprofits in another, just to talk about issues, concerns. So I thought that was intriguing and something we might want to have a discussion about, but something we want to work towards. I think the last thing is the SCT meeting is the end of the month, and either Mayor Pro Tem or myself will attend. This is the meeting where they're going to get briefed on what is referred to as HO5. That's the report from the county that takes the House Bill 1220 mandated allocation of different segments of housing and tells us how much we have to plan for. The very short version is, you might recall, Commerce has recommended 2 options for allocating it amongst the county. Methods A and B, I won't pretend to know what either of those methods stands for. But then method C is a hybrid that gives the county and the cities more discretion how to allocate it. Method C was the least bad of the 3 options and is the one that Mayor Pro Tem at some of the prior SCT meetings has been pushing for. I'm informed by our planning manager that that is likely the recommendation that's going to be coming out of the Planning Advisory Board to the Planning Advisory Committee on Thursday, which will then be briefed to Snohomish County tomorrow's steering committee, which is the electeds on Thursday. I'm sorry, on the 26th, and then action to be taken the following month. So it's heading in the right direction. I don't think it's going to be as controversial as we thought. We don't like what we have to plan for, but the least bad option appears to be the one that's moving forward. So more to follow on that. What is tonight? 11th, 18th, 20th. So that'll occur the night after our next meeting. So we'll report on that at the beginning of May. I think that's what I had for tonight. Mayor Pro Tem, any report?
Thank you, Mayor. I went to Executive Summer's Snohomish County update today, and it was a packed house, and it was live streamed also online, so you should be able to find it if you are inclined to go look for it. And it was a really good update. He sounds very excited about the economic prospects for the county and the direction that the county is going. Also, I ran into quite a few people, ran into some members from Snow Library that ran in and talked to me. They're very excited about the upgrades that with the floor that they're able to be working on right now and things going on over there. So that was really exciting to run into them, run into a few other people. So lots of people excited about things we're doing in Mill Creek. Mayor already mentioned the SCC meeting on April 20th. I'd written down to remind you the RSVP is due by April 13th. So if you are wanting to go, you need to get your RSVP in. And also, I just wanted to remind everyone, you've been getting your emails, but if you have not filed your F1, it is due April 17th. So just want to remind you of that. And that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I can never remember. Councilmember, who's next? Sean or Vince?
I can't remember if I put my name on.
Councilmember Steckler.
Oh, you trying to remember who I am? No report, Mayor.
I'm trying to remember who's next. Councilmember Cavallari.
No report, Mayor, but I was going to do the same thing. Remind everybody on the F1, which I actually did complete on time this year. Thanks.
Okay, so just remember to do your taxes too. Councilmember Allison.
Just a couple of things. I attended the Park and Recs meeting on 4/5. They're busily trying to take a better inventory of all the signage that's kind of like wonky. for all of the city parks. So that was good news that they're doing that research. Let's see, and I attended that because Vince was unavailable and Councilmember Duque was also not available that night. Let's see. The other thing that I wanted to mention was I was able to go on a ride along with Sergeant Fleming. And I just have to say how proud I am to live in the city and to have our police force really do community police work. The few people that I did watch him engage with, it was totally humane and you know, a good outcome. So I'm just really proud to live here and to know that we can count on our police force to do right by all of us. And that's all I have. That's it. Thanks.
Councilmember Duque,
No report.
Councilmember Paddock.
No report.
Okay, it brings us to audience communication. Ms. Heidel, name and address in 3 minutes before we move online.
Barb Heidel, 1401, 144th Place, Southeast Mill Creek. Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank again Scott and Jody for the abundance of work trying to stay on top of all the events, scheduling classroom usage, social media posts, plus a myriad of other responsibilities in addition to all the meetings they must attend. They do a fantastic job, yet exhausting one. Observing all they do firsthand, it is amazing they can juggle so much. I appreciate all they do for all our residents. And just a quick plug for Earth Day. Sign up online if you, your family, or your organization is interested in helping to beautify our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Anyone else in the audience? Anyone online? Okay, that brings us to, the council is going to be recessing to executive session to discuss potential litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1 I. We're going to need 20 minutes, so with the potty break, we'll be in executive session until 7:40. Hey, Adrian, just for the record, just want to state no action will be taken at the end of the executive session.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, let her know this is fantastic. I would love to. Yeah, I'm a star. Barb, you're so welcome. I just went through something from the city of Montego. I think this is what we should probably follow. Well, just like you were saying, though, it's like, let's get out of the business. And just say, they're welcome to hire. And so our police force is not really hired, right? Have to bring it like liquid, we brought them in. Right? So they have to bring it unless they want.
And so, Todd, I mean, and these directions, these are not, court doesn't like to apply. But so I'm not, but then, take it to the book speed. So you get going, you get to the.
You feel it? Yeah. But then you're not. For your stuff. That's just you. They're looking at. But. See, could they go out somewhere else? Everything that we built. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that is it, that your option A is have us do it, option B, bring in your own people that you have to show. There's no like, simple very quick. You want to call there, you come. Got it there. Yeah. Very in front of the mill. And that's why it's being nice, like we're small. In the situation, you don't charge the cost. So pretty sure you talk about that. Oh, yeah, you don't charge the cost. Yeah, that was money we've given away in the past. But last year's state parade and around the mills. Yeah. If you will sponsor. No, but I mean like the Hispanic Heritage Parade. The Hispanic Parade.
Without objection, the council is extending the executive session until 7:55. Without objection, the council is extending the executive session until 8:15. Without objection, the council is extending the executive session until 8:20. Without objection, the council will extend the executive session until 8:30. Mayor, you're muted. I don't hear you. Mayor, I think somebody muted you, so you'll have to join it one more time. I can't hear him, Joe. It says council chambers has been muted. Let me see that. Mayor, I didn't get your adjournment on the record, so we still need to do that if you can get the mic to work. Nope, it's muted.